في الغرب. مستر إدريس توفيق، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Mr. Idris, I want you to tell me what was the first time you were touched by Islam?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The first time I was touched by Islam was when I came to Egypt.
Yes.
Before I came to Egypt, what I knew about Islam was what everyone in the West knows about Islam. It comes from the television. I knew that Muslims were terrorists, and that they chopped your hand, and that they were cruel to ladies, and that Islam was about suicide bombers and very bad things. So I came to...
These are what you heard from media.
Television,
yes.
Newspaper, radio, every day.
Yes.
This is what we hear all the time. And since September the 11th, it's worse and worse and worse.
Yes.
Now, I left the priesthood. I used to be a Roman Catholic priest.
Yeah.
And when I left the priesthood, I was feeling very down. So I decided to come on holiday. So I looked on the internet where I'd get a good holiday. And it came up with Egypt. So I came to Egypt. I came to Egypt not knowing about Muslims.
Yes.
Not knowing Egypt. And I arrived thinking there'll just be sand and pyramids and palm trees. And I came for a week. And that week was the most extraordinary week in my life.
Yes.
Because for the first time, I saw ordinary, simple, sweet Muslims. And I said to myself, but these aren't the people I've seen on the television. These are not the people that the radio tells me about. These are not fanatics and extremists. They're just ordinary people, but who are very religious. And for example, in the main station in Cairo, when the call to prayer sounded, I was astonished to see ordinary men just going down on their knees and praying. And it really touched my heart to just seeing in the street a little boy selling bananas.
Yes.
And he'd greet you with Assalamu alaikum. And you ask him, how are you? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Well, I'd never seen that before. I've never seen people in England or in France or in America with such a deep faith that's in their veins.
Yeah, it touched your heart.
It touched
deeply.
my heart,
yes.
Absolutely. I'd never seen anything like it before. And so instead of these Muslimin being washin, I saw that they were very, very...
طيبين, kind people.
طيبين,
Yes.
حلوين جدا. حلوين جدا.
How had your image of Islam changed when you returned to London?
Well, when I returned to London, I went to a school. I was teaching in a school again as head of religious education. But this time I was teaching not just about Christianity, but about Buddhism and Sikhism and all the religions, including Islam.
Yes.
So I had to teach about something I didn't know anything about. I knew nothing about Islam, except from what I'd seen in Egypt. I'd seen that Muslims were nice people. So every night I would read the books, ready to teach the children. And the more I taught, and the more I read, the more I liked what I read. And I found myself, subhanAllah, I found myself in front of a class of children, of 30 children. And I found my throat getting choked. And when I mentioned the name of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I found tears coming into my eyes. So I had changed.
Although you told me they were naughty boys.
Oh, very
naughty boys.
Very naughty boys.
Yes.
But I've always found that if you can touch hearts, people will listen. And many of these boys, you see, they were Muslim, because they were refugees from different Arab countries. And it was their example that led me to Islam. Can I tell you, for example, the first Ramadan I was in the school, the boys came to me and they said, sir, we have nowhere to pray. We've nowhere to pray Salat al-Dhuhr. And your room is the only room with a carpet. Subhanallah, that's the way Allah works. My classroom was the only room with a carpet.
The only room in the whole
in the whole school. So it was the only place they could pray.
Yes.
So I said, okay, you can pray in my classroom. I wasn't Muslim.
Yes.
So for a whole month, they prayed, and I sat at the back, and I watched, and I listened. And by the end of Ramadan, I knew the prayers, because on Fridays they would say the prayers out loud, and I knew what the movements of the prayers were. So their example taught me about Islam. Egypt was the catalyst. Then working with these children really taught me what Islam was like.
So what happened then to make you declare Shahada?
Well, in London there's a big mosque, London Central Mosque.
Yes.
And every Saturday they have talks for non-Muslims, information.
Yes.
So I went along for information, not to become Muslim, for information. And each Saturday I listened about Islam, and I began to like it more and more. And the last Saturday I went, there was a speaker, Yusuf Islam,
Yes.
very famous
We know him,
speaker,
yes.
Cat Stevens.
Yeah.
And at the end of his talk, I went to him and said, Brother Yusuf, what does a person do to become Muslim? I don't want to be Muslim, but just what does a person do? He said, well, Muslims believe in one God. So I said, yeah, well, I believe in one God. And he said, Muslims pray 5 times a day. I said, yes, I know the prayers in Arabic, I know them.
Yeah.
So he was very surprised. He said, and Muslims pray during Ramadan. I said, well, actually, they fast in Ramadan. I said, well, actually, I fasted with the boys in Ramadan. And he looked me in the eyes, and he said to me, who are you trying to fool? And at that moment, the adhan sounded, and we all went upstairs for Salat al-Maghrib. And while everyone prayed Salat al-Maghrib, I sat at the back of the mosque, sat at the back of the prayer hall, and the prayer began, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really touched my heart, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried as the prayer went on. And at the end of the prayer, I went up to Yusuf Islam, and I said, Brother Yusuf, I want to declare Shahada now. So in front of him and all of the other brothers present in the mosque, I declare there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. And it changed my life.
It was an unforgettable moment,
Totally
of course.
unforgettable.
Yes. How has becoming a Muslim changed your life?
My friends say, perhaps they're the best judge,
Yes.
my friends say I've become a kinder person.
Kinder?
Kinder person.
You seem very kind.
Thank you very much. My friends say, now I'm kinder, I'm more sensitive to other people, I'm less selfish. I know in here that I'm more confident in myself. I don't rely on other people's opinions. All I want to do, now, when I pray, I'll let you into a secret, when I pray now, I ask Almighty Allah every day, make me a better Muslim. Please make me a better person, make me a good Muslim. And being good makes you feel good.
Yes.
Praying makes you feel good. You know, now we're in the holy month of Ramadan.
And praying 5 times a day.
Praying 5 times
Yeah.
a day. It took a long time for me to get into the routine. But once in the routine, it makes you feel good.
Yes.
What I would say was, now we're in the holy month of Ramadan, and every day of the year, Almighty Allah is calling us to Him and warning us, come back to me before it's too late. In Ramadan, even the least religious person wants to try his best, try her best to be good. And you ask, how's it changed me? Well, I've realized that in life, Islam teaches that you don't have to do haram things to be happy. Halal things can make you... Muslims are very happy.
Yes.
Muslims are very sweet, and Muslims are full of fun. It's not what we see on the television in the West. Muslims are very happy people.
And haram is very little things.
Very small things.
Yes.
Everything is halal, unless it's declared to be haram.
Yes. Okay, tell me about your future plans. Do you want to make something for Islam, or يعني, it's enough for you to be a good Muslim?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I really believe that being a good Muslim, being good Muslims is the way we will attract others to Islam. So that's the first thing.
Yes.
So I want to be a good Muslim. But the strange thing is, since becoming Muslim, since coming to live in Egypt, I've written a book. I now write for 2 newspapers. I write for Islam Online, and I do radio broadcasts. Soon I'm going to Canada to talk to the Muslim community in Toronto. So inshallah, this faith, this new life that has given me such happiness, and it really has made me so happy, it's leading me, Almighty Allah is leading me in a way I would never have imagined. And so when I wrote my book, for example, I wrote it for non-Muslims, and now I find that my emails all the time are coming from non-Muslims and Muslims. I never thought I would be able to talk to Muslims, but Muslims seem to like the way I talk about our faith. And young people, especially students, university students, young professionals. So inshallah, I'd like to carry on writing, talking, speaking.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
And we hope faith in your heart reaches all over the world.
Inshallah.
Thank you, Mr. Idris. شكرا لكم. شكرا, Mr. Idris. ونلقاكم